Finally, some good news. Bread worked. All right, today is the day. We are having an international party day, which is for my international. It's a party for that one. Hopefully, I'll have a few buddies of mine over today, and we're going to get some work done on this thing. Main goal is to get the powertrain in it, get the front clip back on it, and we'll see where we can go from there. I made a little list, just some stuff that we could probably get done today. Just a little list: engine, transmission, exhaust, front clip, rear axle, steering column, steering wheel, shifter, sound deadener, seat, fab core support, mount coil packs. Got a bed mat for the floor, and then bolt the transmission cross member down. And I got to make sure I tighten the front shocks before I put the front clip back on, because it can be kind of a pain. So, not a lot, just a little list. So, realistically, if I get the powertrain in today, I'll be happy. Powertrain and the rear axle setup are the two biggest jobs for today. Steering column will be a plus, because the goal is to have this thing, powertrain in it, steering in it, so I can get the pedal assembly set up, and then I'm going to haul this thing to the big shop to get it up on the hoist to run brake lines, fuel lines, get the electrical stuff done on it. We are driving this truck 4th of July weekend. That is the goal. So there's a lot of stuff to do to it, even though I keep saying that it's a relatively simple build. After building the red truck, I feel like it is relatively simple, because it's a single cab, it's not 4-wheel drive. I'm not like making the interior super nice. So yeah, we're gonna see how far we can get today. If everybody's comfortable, I will document it for the YouTube. If not, we'll just do a big time lapse, but we'll just see how people are feeling. But hopefully it'll be a good time, and we get a lot done. So we'll see how it goes. All right, today is Sunday, day after the international party. Got quite a bit done, and we learned a lot yesterday. I didn't get to video much of it because we were fighting some stuff. So the 6-liter that I'm putting in this thing originally had an automatic transmission put behind it. I'm putting an NV4500 5-speed behind it. I got the transmission from a buddy, and he had a flywheel and clutch kit for it. Got the clutch bolted on. Got everything ready. We stabbed the motor, and then we were going to stab the transmission. And I noticed when I put the pilot bearings in the crankshaft that there's a little bit of surface rust on the input shaft. So I took an emery cloth and cleaned up the splines and all that fun stuff, because the transmission has been sitting for a while. So cleaned up the splines, got everything what I thought was good. We went to stab the transmission, and we were having one heck of a time trying to get the transmission to bolt up. We did have the splines engaged. It was in there. And after some shimmying, we got it just about an inch away from the bell housing, away from the back of the engine, and it just wasn't going on. There's a pretty decent sized gap on that flywheel. This engine is out of a 2000 Silverado 2500. It is a 6-liter, also considered a long crank 6-liter. So this being a long crank 6-liter, there are some pretty specific parts, because it's a 99 to 2000 model only. So it requires a very specific flywheel, which that is not the specific flywheel for it. We did leave it in there kind of for mock-up, just so I could get some other stuff done. I guess we can look at the list. We can check some stuff off. We uninstalled the engine. Perfect. we actually don't need to uninstall the transmission. So I'll just take that off. Look at that, knocking things off the list. We got the rear axle gear set up. We'll take that off the list. We got the steering column in and the steering wheel. We'll take that off the list. That's about it. Like I said, it was a party. So there's a lot of socializing and working. I definitely am lucky that I have the group of friends that I have, and the fact that they came out to help me with my project is fantastic. But we've got, I'll show you the stuff. We've got gears. We've got gears in the rear axle. I need to seal this whole thing up and done. Rear axle is checked off the list. As you can see here, this steering column actually ended up being the perfect length. I thought I was going to have so many issues trying to get that thing to fit, but it actually bolted right up. I ordered like 4 different mounts and they all worked. This is the fanciest thing on the truck. This is a Forever Sharp steering wheel with the mahogany wrap and the brass rivets. It's sharp. It is going to be sharp forever. I did it tilt column. It is actually a 30-inch column. It worked out pretty well. It bolted pretty much up into the factory spot, and there's a ton of room actually. I am so happy to have the steering wheel in. Once we get the transmission set up, I can finally set the shifter up, and then we're on to pedals. On a positive note, even though I didn't get the engine installed, it worked out well because another hiccup, I got the wrong clamshell mounts. These are big block mounts and I got small block. So I had to order a different set of those. It is what it is. You live and you learn. We learned a lot. That's all. Last night was a learning experience, but that's just how it is sometimes.
1 week later.
All right, got the clutch on. The new flywheel sits so much closer to the block, so that makes me feel good. We weren't quite hitting the dowel pins, but the dowel pins were just about to engage on the bell housing, so we were whatever this distance is right here. So it's all a learning experience, and I'm learning a lot. See cast iron heads on a 6-liter, run away. Or don't use a standard transmission at least behind it, because it's going to be a wild ride. So, but we're going to get the engine stabbed in the truck now, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, update. Motor's back out. I am having a heck of a time getting this transmission to stab. I could get the transmission lined up on the dowel pins, half the bolts threaded in, but there was this 1/4 inch gap all the way around, and I started to walk the bolts, but the smarter side of me said that's probably not a good idea. I opted to pull the engine again to double check that I had the correct pilot bearing. So these engines had 2 pilot bearings with them, and if you were using like a T56, the input shaft stuck out 3/4 of an inch to an inch from the bell housing, and you would use the smaller inner pilot bearing. And then if you had a transmission like this, where the input shaft sticks out 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch from the bell housing, you use the larger outer diameter pilot bearing. I did some measuring, double checked that I had the correct pilot bearing, polished the input shaft a little bit and greased the crap out of it. I'm thinking I'm catching on that, but I made sure that the clutch is aligned awesome. I know that these plastic alignment tools sometimes will throw it off a little bit, but that's what I got. About to put it back in and see if I can get this transmission lined up once and for all. Wish me luck. Update. Pulled both of them back out. I checked the pinion bearing and made sure that the pinion bearing was the right one. Made sure that the pinion was cleaned off and greased. I was able to put the motor in, line it up, and it slid on like a dream. But something is causing this thing to stick about a 1/4 inch off. I gave in to tightening the bolts up on the bell housing. Also found out that the engine won't turn over when the bolts are tight. So that's not good. So something's binding. I've got to do some measurements and see maybe the input shaft is bottoming out or something's going on. But for now, I'm in the learning process and I just got to figure it out. Update on the 6-liter dilemma. I think I found out what the problem is. So not only does this 6-liter take a specific flywheel because the crank's longer, it also takes a specific pilot bearing. Double checked that I had the correct pilot bearing.
Wait a minute.
Even though the clutch kit gives you measurements as to what bearing to use, because the crank is longer, what's happening is the input shaft is bottoming out on the pilot bearing before the transmission is seating, which is why when I do seat the transmission, the engine doesn't turn no more. So I found the part number, ordered the pilot bearing. Unfortunately, I went to the parts store and it's all special order. Go figure. So I ordered the pilot bearing and it'll be here this next week. So for now, I am going to push the pilot bearing that's in here out. And I'm going to do a trick that I've seen videos of and I've never tried it personally, and that's the bread trick. We're going to shove a bunch of bread in the hole, and apparently the bearing is going to pop out. Watch this. It won't work on this 99 to 2000 6-liter. That would be my luck at the moment, but fingers crossed the bread will at least work. But we're about to find out. Finally, some good news. Bread worked. The one thing that wasn't vehicle specific, bread. I was getting kind of skeptical at first because it really didn't want to pop out. Now I just gotta wait for the new bearing to show up and we'll go over all this again. I had a very captive audience while I was chewing up bread. Roy, buddy. So, figured these guys watched me so patiently shove bread into a hole that they deserve a piece of wheat bread. They're good helpers. They helped. They supervised while I did the trick. So, that's cool. I officially can say I've done it. There's not much left I can do today. So, that'll be pretty much it for this. Wait for the bearing to come in and we will try it again. So I got the motor mounts done. I had to pull the floor pan back out of it to get the engine and the transmission out at the same time, but hopefully this next week I can get it done and the engine and transmission will be in this thing for good. So, but that's about it. That's all I can do today. So we'll see you later.